Welcome to another special episode of the Offside Musings Podcast. My name is Oke Ndibe. I'm delighted to welcome you on behalf of my co-host, Emeka Onyagwa. In this week's episode, we're going to be doing a kind of review of the first full week of political campaigns in Nigeria. We're going to examine the positives as well as the negatives for the main contenders in the race. And we're going to speak to our expectations going forward. You're welcome. So, Emeka, I'm going to start off by, it's been quite an interesting week. I don't know what you were expecting about the first week of political campaigns in Nigeria, but I'd like to get your impressions of how it turned out.
Well, for me, one guy is attending weddings left, right, and center, and seems to have a crowd, but I suspect a large part of that crowd was rented. Jumping up and down. One guy is missing. He released a video of him riding a stationary bike multiple times. That's the best we've seen of that guy. Last guy just came back and he's doing what he's doing, and it's clearly ignited the movement. Anybody that thought it wasn't a movement previously is clearly, at the very least, everybody you have to accept that it's been proved wrong. I'm giving the same rhetoric, the same distance, the same prudency, trying to show that what Nigeria needs, it's a good, financially responsible leader. But whatever it is, people are hungry for the message, and I think that gap has been there. People are hungry for the message, and he's not even the one doing it anymore. It's now the people. So,
yeah, I'll tell you what I expected, right? So for several weeks now, the Obi movement, the so-called obedient movement, has had just the energy, the momentum, the fuel, the hype, everything. I actually expected that last week, which inaugurated the official campaign, that we were going to see all three major political parties put their best foot forward. We're going to see their presidential candidates sort of spell out certain key policies that they would propose as the panacea for the multi-sectoral crisis that we have in Nigeria. In that regard, it was a dampener. I think that all three major political parties failed to produce any such blueprint, failed to come up with a strong showing of their agenda, of their manifesto, of the path forward for Nigeria. But this is what I saw and what everybody saw, and you have already sort of alluded to it, that there were essentially two campaigns last week. There was the Labour Party campaign on the one hand, the Peter Obi movement. Again, it came up with a lot of drama and energy and spectacle it was a very confident showing in several Nigerian cities where his supporters, Obi's supporters, just filled the streets with songs and excitement and enthusiasm. On the other hand, were the other political parties, the PDP and the APC. And I thought that it was a particularly, shall I say, particularly awful outing for those two political parties. Atiku basically seems that Atiku Abubakar, the presidential candidate of the People's Democratic Party, PDP, seems frozen in place. Perhaps finding it difficult to move forward in the face of this mutiny within his political party that is led by Governor Nyesom Wike of Rivers State. And then Tinubu, again, as you have alluded, was even a more disastrous showing. The fact that Tinubu will choose the first week of campaigns to retire to London was like sending himself on retirement from contention. There is this perception that Tinubu is seriously, if not gravely ill. And as you said, the fact that the man showed himself on a stationary bike was actually a disaster, a PR disaster. I don't quite know. I haven't quite figured out how to place that particular showing, which was supposed to show us that this man is vibrant and is strong and so on. It would have been better if the man had said nothing, but returned to Nigeria this week and attended, say, a series of political campaigns where he will speak, hold the stage for like 30 minutes at a time. That would be the kind of convincing message that this man is in excellent health. Somebody who is sick could be, buoyed with some vitamins, some steroids, and get on a bike for 5 minutes or 3 and take a video shot of that and show it. I don't think that Nigerians particularly took to it. And if you saw on social media, that show of apparent strength was just subjected to the most merciless mockery by people on social media.
Yeah. I think in concert with that, earlier today was there was a tweet by Buhari's special assistant on digital communications, a guy called Bashar Ahmed, and essentially it's probably a map not from him, but one he and the APC, that's a All People's Congress, that's the Tinubu's party that they would love. They were showing I laugh because I always find it very amusing when people make all this comparative analysis, this comparison in terms of the way elections are in Nigeria and the way they are like in America or the UK. So the map shows candidates, swing states. I'm just like,
oh my gosh, that's
very
mimicry right there. Yeah, some of us are versed in mimicry, so you talk about swing states in America, so somebody comes up with swing states in Nigeria.
I know this guy, right? So this guy I know, I used to meet on social media platforms, and he's very good at talking Nigerian politics. He probably moved there, he moved to America maybe like a year or two ago. Yes. And I think in Nigeria, he had been watching maybe CNN or something, and then he comes in. And the way he talks about American politics, is the way he talks about Nigerian politics. And I always tell him, like, bro, you know Nigerian politics, I give it to you, but please just stay out of the American kitchen, or you go and educate yourself before you come and start having,
you'll go and learn. Yes.
So this guy is coming with this map of voters. They look at Atiku, giving Atiku Taraba, Damawa, Rivers, I believe, maybe Delta as well. They're giving Atiku Akwa Ibom as well. They're giving Tinubu the whole of the Southwest, the whole of this is their map, by the way, not my map. I do not co-sign on this map. I'm just reading that. I'm just using this map to illustrate the point. So,
oh my gosh.
They're giving Tinubu the whole of this thing into even Niger, Zamfara, Tinubu, they're giving it all the way Zamfara, Katsina, this thing. Then they give Kwankwaso Kano only. They give Tinubu Bauchi, Jigawa, Yola, Borno, and then they call the swing states Gombe, Kaduna, Plateau. I'm telling you, this straight face, man. So all this to illustrate that the bigger question for these guys is, moving into the elections is not, they don't care if their candidate is not around. I've had conversations with people who I talk with, people who I even went to school with, and they used to be very dismissive of the Peter Obi movement, which, you put forth that, it's the answer. Is it the answers phase 2? And now they're like, yeah, this is the kind of thing that we wanted, in the sense that we've always wanted people to take responsibility for their destinies and they should come out and fight. However, Peter Obi will not win because he has no structure. So the point of making that is that, to them, they are probably thinking, the APC, Tinubu people, that it's a done deal, it's done in the bag. And the question now is do they really feel that in a vote that is even 70% free, that they would win? Or is it just simply they're
counting on the old ways of securing victory?
So, because they don't seem to care. People are talking of Tinubu going to London, but Tinubu barely appeared at the APC convention to carry the day. Barely. He hadn't even appeared for a while. Yeah, leading up to that convention, he made a huge ruckus left, right, and center, goes to culminating and going to Ogun State to belittle everybody he could find in his. I think he was even probably belittling the roadside sellers, if he could find, just belittling everybody he could find. So he barely even, and then you could see him even at the APC convention, he could barely climb the steps. They'd help everywhere. He looked,
shaky hands as he read his statement, and couldn't hold the flag of the party.
Yeah, so
when it was given to him.
Yeah, it's terrible.
Well, clearly, I think that something that you and I think any intelligent political analyst is coming to terms with is that there's going to be something extraordinary about next year's elections. I'm not yet saying that Peter Obi is going to win that election, right? I have enough analytic humility to say that there are still so many unknowns. But clearly what you have here are two political parties, the APC and the PDP, which are running campaigns that remind Nigerian voters of all the ways in which they have been screwed since 1999, when we started this latest journey in quote-unquote democratic governance. The way that Tinubu and Atiku secured the tickets of their parties was simply a dollar fest, so it was a fight over who was going to bribe the delegates with the most dollars. It was obscene, clearly. There was nothing ennobling, nothing uplifting, nothing to excite you if you're a Nigerian and you want to see a modicum of sanity in Nigeria. There was nothing there that was encouraging at all. What you got instead was the certainty that if somebody is going to spend perhaps hundreds of millions of dollars, or let's say scores and scores of dollars, right? To win his party's nomination and perhaps to spend more to win the presidency. I don't think that I'm persuaded that Atiku or Tinubu have this great patriotic plan in their minds for moving Nigeria to a different positive pedestal, and that they are bribing people with all this wealth that they have in order to get the opportunity to go and recreate Nigeria in a way that will make Nigerians proud. I think that when politicians spend so much money to secure a political office, they see it, once they get that office, as having made an investment. And the first order of business is to recoup what they have expended in the pursuit of this office, and then to make a scandalous level of profit. So that's what we saw from these two political parties. Now, Peter Obi, on the other hand, came out, whether this was in his character or whether there was a bit of posture in there, but he said that he wasn't willing to give a dime to run for political office. And he was, as it were, invited by the Labour Party to pick up their presidential ticket. What we've seen is that his act then excited young people, a kind of carryover from the NSAS movement. And I know that some people were a bit upset that Obi's campaign should be mentioned in the same breath as the NSAS movement. But that wasn't me, that wasn't us making that comparison. That was some of those who were in the NSAS movement saying that they have brought forward some of the energy of that movement, and that it is that energy that is fueling their support for Obi. And so when you saw what happened last week, Obi did not make much of any move, right? I know that he met with Wike, I think, last Friday. Perhaps the newspaper speculated that this is to secure Wike's support. Wike clearly is still playing the role of the beautiful bride. So beyond that, Obi did not address any political rallies. And yet, on their own, his supporters...
He did, though.
Well, yes, he did. He did. That's true.
Yeah.
But what I'm saying is that, he was actually the lone candidate who
went out. He was in Jos. He was in...
that's true.
In a bunch of places. He addressed some rallies.
Yes. But it was most of the rallies in the country were just his supporters who organized themselves, and just in Lagos, it was quite impressive. Even in New York, it was similarly impressive, not at the size that you saw in Lagos. But in every part of the country, you're seeing his supporters come out and run the debate, which is consistent with what I forget her name now, the young woman who spoke to CNN and said that the youth...
Wayemi Lube.
Yeah, precisely, Lube.
Lube.
That the youth are running for the presidency, and they are using Obi, as it were, as their symbol. So it's also a way, I think it's a way of chastening Obi himself, that if Obi ever wins the presidency, he should realize that the youth must be in the room of power, not corridors, in the very center of power with him, that they should be in the cabinet, they should be at every level of the structures of government, and that they also, that their agenda ultimately is going to inform what he does as president, if he wins
Yeah.
the presidency.
Yeah.
But it's a long way for me of saying that anybody who is still harking back to the way that previous elections were run
Mhm.
is totally blind, because it's clear, you and I started out being skeptical about the Obi movement. We felt this was going to fizzle out. We felt this was just some tentative bursts of energy.
I mean,
But we're,
I didn't know what was going to happen. I'm just like, I don't know. I just know
yeah.
that his fans are his fans.
Yeah,
I don't know.
but I felt it was going to be a kind of ragtag army of a few hundreds who will get up and make noise, and then the next day they will go and sit down and sup on their pepper soup and drink beer and so on. But we're seeing a continuation of the energy, and I'm paying attention, and I know you are, and I think that a lot of people are paying attention to what's going on.
Yeah. Just a few key things, so the term JAPA, JAPA, is now a trendy term in Nigeria, which essentially signifies you're out, you're tired. I think you look at the stats, the UK has always been the favorite educational target for Nigerians. I think in, what year was it? By 2018, I need to pull it up. I think it was like 8,000 student visas or something like that. As of this year, I think it's like, or last year was like 70,000 or something like that. It more than 10 times more people have gone to the UK, and a lot of them are looking for ways to go into Europe, because they have more friendly programs for people to come and stay there. That's one thing. The other thing is, somebody asked that question, and I'll keep asking that, like, if Peter Obi gets in there and he wavers in any way, they can't even think of what will happen. I was looking at this week what is always the common theme, but this is common theme in the UK. When a prime minister is forced to step down, whether it was Tony Blair, eventually step down, Boris Johnson, in this case, Theresa May, when a prime minister is forced to step down, especially when it's popular pressure to some degree, I think Boris Johnson was kind of, maybe you could say that. I really don't see why he stepped down. But when you get into office, like current prime minister got in, Liz Truss, and then I think it was the very first week she got in, the Queen died. That's another story. But the main thing is she gets in and then she proposes this. She has this proposals to tamper inflation left, right, and center that is being caused in this case actually by their own policies. Really, they are trying to blame Russia and all that, but this is their own policies. The point is, she had this thing that they put in there. They were going to give tax cuts to the rich, trickle down economics, like it's always, and the whole market collapsed. And the way the UK pension system is structured, even the local government pensions and everything, the way it's structured, it's a total mess.
Yeah.
And the point is this, even though that is more of the working class and all those things, because the working class in the UK has switched to this thing, the point is, if Peter Obi gets in and there's any wavering, I'm not even sure the country can hold, which is something a friend of mine was talking about, like, I had that conversation. She's like, nah, she doesn't want Peter Obi there. I said, why? I said, look, man, doesn't see how this country, without a certain level of restructuring, without trying to put together the structures, some kind of structure moving forward that could at least form the basis of a nation, that this is not going to work. Everything is upside down. So like now, and then when Peter Obi gets in there, in high estimation, it's not going to be like 2008 in America when Obama got in, which is another similarity where John McCain suspends his campaign. Actually, the anniversary just passed, which was the 28th of September, 2008, where the crash finally comes down. John McCain, I think it was like the 30th, it was around this period in 2008, John McCain suspends his campaign to assess. That's where he lost it completely. That was it, man. That moment, any chance he had, which was slim to none, very slim, really. It wasn't to none, but very slim. Any chance he had at that moment, this thing. Anyway, so it was it's similar to the expectations of Obama. He comes in, he doesn't necessarily hit it out of the park for his constituents, but he does what he does, and that's it. It would be the energy, and I'm coming back to that. This thing, the energy, the energy. It's man. They say there's a saying that no matter how angry you get, your anger cannot boil egg. The energy there can more than
can boil. In fact, can cook a stone. That's how
So you have this energy there that is looking for an outlet, and whether people like it or not, quite accurately, for people that put it that way, the energy is now being put behind Peter Obi, as in some ways an indictment of the last since 1999, and even prior to that, of this Nigerian project in its entirety. In some ways, people are frustrated for years. Like I talk about, if you are in your 30s, 40s, you're looking at your parents when they came out of school. I tell that story. My mom, after the Civil War, gets into nursing school, University of Lagos. She goes to University of Lagos. She gets room and board, laundry, food, allowance, which she says she didn't even need the allowance. She used to tie her allowance and send it to her mother every day, every month, because she was the only child of her mother. And a lot of people, and when she finished, she came out, car loan, brand new car loan you could pay off in a year or two, same thing. My father came back, UNN, USC, choice of jobs that he wanted, all these guys. They are the ones that own a large amount of the real estates in the country. They are the ones that got this. So now the kids are, if you're not somewhere, very few people are like somewhere where their financial situation is great, whether you're in the country or out the country. Most people are just sitting on their daddy's houses waiting for their fathers to die. And and even I've seen people from out here, I keep talking about it, people from out here who have moved back. Some law cases, they actually didn't have papers, but some of them, I know one or two that actually did have papers. They've moved back in the anticipation of taking over. In some cases, the parents have already, the father is dead or something. But in some law cases, there's the anticipation of, I got to grab this thing. There's that mental scarcity that has been induced by the situation. And people, it's a pressure pot. People are angry. People are looking for an outlet. And these candidates largely haven't come up with in fact, I saw the tired old program APC had the last time. They said they were going to give every graduate an allowance. It was so hilarious when they said it. I was like, wow, these guys are practicing comedy. I saw who was trying to say, I think Atiku was trying to say something that, they're going, it's like, how is this going to work? People are not coming out to talk about these things, address the problems. Maybe something like akin to what we saw in Anambra, where they had the debates. And the debates, there were a lot of shots. There were cheap shots from even Soludo as well, especially to Andy Uba. There were a couple of cheap shots there. But overall, they were addressing issues and even, addressing character as well, to a large degree. So necessarily it's been more or less cordial. People are not shooting shots, but people are not haven't addressed taking a look. How do we this thing? I've heard Peter Obi talk about the solution is to cure the mentality we have. Why are people buying houses in America? FYI, most of these people don't buy houses in America, by the way. Very few of them. I can count on my fingers. They're typically in London and Dubai, FYI, but all the same, it's still the same thing. Why are they buying houses? Oh, they say, come and buy a house here. Come on, you've seen these statements. He's talking about the malaise of the mentality of the typical, which is true. Is it something you can solve overnight? I don't know. Yeah. I don't know, but it will be good. I mean, that seems to be Peter Obi's own solution. Yeah. Atiku and Tinubu have put out this large documents, documents in each case, which just, it's just technocratic stuff, which they themselves don't even know what it is. They themselves don't even answer these questions. When they go out, you see them, Atiku, you see Tinubu. Well, you don't see Tinubu, by the way. You see Atiku. You see Tinubu on his videos doing God knows what, giving a mean look like he's about to go to. So it's the disappointing part of it that when you see all this pressure and you see the situation added to it, you'd love it to equal people talking about something more than, well, you don't have structure, or this one, or trying to insinuate, well, we don't care, we're going to win somehow, some way. It's going to happen. Like, you'd love to see a campaign, and it might still happen, but the first week, by and large, I agree with you, has been disappointing.
Yeah. Well, as you said, there's such angst, such heightened desperate energy on the part of young people. And to be fair, Nigeria has been a total disaster for them, right? You're talking about your mother and your father. I remember my own uncle graduating from UNN with engineering. He had just a selection of jobs that he could pick from. Again, he had a car waiting for him the week he, started a job. He had a car loan and so on and so forth. People had leave that was paid. They could travel abroad on vacations, and they could travel within Nigeria. By the way, Nigeria was still safe enough that people could go to Obudu Ranch, people could go to Yankari Game Reserve, people could go to Enugu and see all the different, resorts and so on near Enugu and near around many Nigerian cities. I remember years ago when I was a young journalist at The Guardian, and Ben Okri, the novelist, came from London, and he did an extensive tour of Nigeria by road. Drove all the way to as far as Maiduguri, Sokoto, and so on. And he will come back to Lagos, will meet at a joint, and as we ate amala and so on, and drank beer, he would share the impressions of what he's seen on these trips. Now, nobody in their right mind goes on these journeys anymore. Okay, there are too many people, too many kidnappers, too many religious zealots, religious fanatics who think that they've been commissioned by God to kill people. Too many criminals who pose and show themselves off on social media, and they turn out to be just criminals, who engage in kidnapping and so on. So, the Nigerian state has come to its final, its final moment of grave morbid symptoms. to quote Antonio Gramsci, right?
My
So
God.
this is we're seeing a manifestation of morbid symptoms in Nigeria.
Yeah.
Every institution in Nigeria has failed. Every institution. So I was speaking with a friend today in Nigeria, and I said, "Hey, what's the situation back in Anambra State?" And it turned out that just about a week ago, I think in Umunze, some of these quote unquote unknown gunmen had killed some soldiers, and then soldiers went and regrouped and came and opened fire in a marketplace and just
Jeez.
slaughtered people. Okay, so if this sort of thing happened in an ordered society, it will be news, international news. It will be, the government will be on it. A commission of inquiry will be set up to identify the soldiers who did this, and so on and so forth, and they will be tried and fired from the force, and so on and so forth. But this is Nigeria. Things like this, these kinds of outrages happen, and they're just swept under the rug. Okay, so it's just collateral damage of the Nigerian state. So the Nigerian state eats its own. Okay, so, and Nigeria has become a country. I remember there's a moment which I've talked about before in Achebe's No Longer at Ease, where Obi Okonkwo has been accused of bribery and is just been found guilty. And the Umuofia community in Lagos meets. Umuofia Progressive Union meets in Lagos to discuss the, just this tragic outcome for a guy that they had sent to school in England. They had reposed much hope in him. He was their representative in the senior service and so on. And so one of the elders says, in saying the opening prayer, says, "We are strangers in this town. If good comes to it, let us have our share." All right. So if good comes to Lagos, they want to have their share. But if bad comes, let it go to the owners of the land who know which gods to appease. And so you find a situation where, and so Nigerians, of course, another sort of common saying, especially in the 70s and 80s, when a military president will visit a state, the traditional rulers, the people of a state will gather together and present an address of welcome. Inevitably, in that address of welcome, they will ask the president, the visiting military head of state, to provide what they will call their fair share of the national cake. So we always turned Nigeria into a cake, which we had to devour. And so we have eaten and eaten and eaten, and there's nothing left of this cake. And then we pounded eba in lieu of cake, and we have eaten all the eba. And we've done rishi, and we've eaten all of it.
We now have
so there's
Pashoko.
now precisely. So there's now, and it's only a few people who have eaten. There is a friend of mine, a writer, who wrote a small fable called "When Tebu Came to." When Tebu came to, I forget the title now. It's a very sardonic book looking at a community that used to have plenty, right? Used to have a lot. And then the white man came, and the white man said to them, because the community used to sit on the floor and eat. And the white man came and said, no, you have to have a civilized way of eating, and brought them a table. Well, the problem is that the table could not accommodate everybody. And so some of the leaders of the community quickly came up with a plan and said to the rest of them, okay, since everybody can't get around the table to eat, the majority of you have to, stay away and let us eat on your behalf. Okay? So how the white man and his ways introduced to us this idea of representational eating. Okay, so we're going to eat for you, but there is nothing that comes to you, not even the crumbs anymore. So it's a way of agreeing with you that Nigeria is in a very desperate place. And so there is matching desperation on the part of young people, which is why I think Obi has a great shot at winning the presidency, because young people sort of see that this country is going to hell unless they rise up to save it. And perhaps not even then, which is why I have my preference, which I suspect is yours too, is that in lieu of elections next year, that Nigeria should have a rescue plan, a transitional rescue government that will set up structure, set up a new constitution, create a modicum of sanity, so that some of the clowns who seek elections in Nigeria would quietly be pushed to the side. Okay, there's no reason why a country like Nigeria should have some of the characters who seek political office at every level in that country. The most reprobate, the most rustic, the least educated elements, the least enlightened are those who propose themselves for leadership. So my proposal would be that we create a sane country before we talk about elections. But obviously, very few people are willing to entertain that idea.
Yeah.
So, and that's why you said somebody was sorry for Obi. I feel profoundly scared for Obi, because if Obi wins the presidency, okay, if an Atiku wins or a Tinubu, I think that their performance is going to be mediocre at best, but that's what everybody would expect. I think Obi has inspired, or the young people have thrust upon Obi, a certain idea of his extraordinariness. And so they have reposed in Obi this faith, this confidence that if he won the elections, then Nigeria is going to be, be a different place, right? It's going to be a really, really tough task for anybody, okay, for anybody to achieve. So if Obi fails the youth, and I think that even with his best effort, his achievement is still going to be subpar, given the challenges of that space. I think that we don't know what, once if the youth discover that they've done all this work and they've got, say, an Obi elected, and then they expect, because I think that they're going to be impatient. They're going to see results quickly. They're going to see improvement in power, improvement in the diversification of the economy, improvement in the availability of jobs, improvements in all kinds of infrastructural facilities. It's going to be impossible to do because Nigeria has no money, unless the international community will come together and say, listen, Nigeria is so big and strategically important that if it fails, it's going to be a massive disaster for the entire West African sub-region. So we're going to infuse massive capital to help an Obi regime turn the place around. Otherwise, you don't turn a country around with sand. And in a sense, that's all Nigeria has. The oil that we should be making a lot of money from now, you have bunkerers who are making fortunes, but Nigeria is getting very little.
Yeah, I don't think it's impossible for him to figure out something. He could figure out something. I just gauge it on the scale of likelihood. I think the likelihood is low, but I'm not going to say he can't figure something out. It's just, Nigeria is in that situation where nothing is. In fact, if not that Buhari was leaving next year, I think if he had to stay another 2 years, I don't think he would physically survive it. I think something will happen to him. I'm not like saying, I don't have any fault. I'm not part of, I'm just saying that it's that bad that even though, people, Buhari was removed after 18 months the first time. He came in 31st of December. They put him in 31st of December, 83. They kicked him out. I believe it was August 27, 85.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
So it was barely 18 months he was in. Somewhere around that, they kicked him out. This time around, people are just sitting down and like, all right, you know what? Let's wait. February. Let's see what happens. In the meantime, the middle class of the country is getting finished. People are just leaving and all that. So it's a very complex situation. I won't say it's impossible, but I just, we've always talked about, even before we became this thing, we've always talked about, look, man, anybody that wants to lead the country needs to inspire the country to some degree. And I'm not going to, well, I was going to, but you go back historically, people that said that put the wheels in motion in certain countries that inspired people out of, even in recent history, and even in America, you're talking of Ronald Reagan inspired, but to me, his policies were awful. And when I say policies, I don't mean social, I mean economic policies. Reagan and all that. Now, Reagan helped decimate the middle class, but after he got shot, just get out of bed, give speeches, rest, those kind of things.
Yeah.
Inspiring people. Obama inspired people. JFK inspired people in difficult situations. Those are more recent examples. Tony Blair, the young Tony Blair, when he came in at 43, inspired people. Not at the end, but at the beginning. but
Margaret Thatcher, and was a different kind of politician, but she was with Reagan. They both are credited with wrestling the Soviet Union to a standstill. So I think that
they both got a lot of credit, but anyway.
Her personality was.
She wasn't. I won't call her inspiring. She was a tough manager.
Yeah, she was.
Reagan was inspiring to people.
Yeah, that's true.
Reagan was. You go back to Reagan, it's the same way people look at Obi. There's considerable evidence that the Democrats back then, more than almost undisputable evidence, Democrats were the ones that pushed the crazy guy to run over the then mayor of San Francisco. I've forgotten his name. Forgotten the guy's name anyway. Democrats pushed, funded.
Is it Brown?
I think Brown. He was supposed to win the Republican nomination. They were like,
the Republican.
They were like, they could beat this guy. So the guy that was supposed to win was, I believe, the mayor of San Francisco. They pushed the Reagan. This guy is a clown. He's talking rubbish. Because everything Reagan said to me, and if you go back historically, it's the same thing this person is trying to do, Theresa May. It's trickle-down economics. He goes in there, got the unions, got the social safety net, all that stuff. And they're like, because there was growth. People are like, it was great, but it should have been a lot better. Vilifies all those things, anyway. Point is, Reagan was this guy that, as crazy as it was, similar to Trump, but actually more disciplined than Trump by far.
Absolutely.
He inspired people. All this to say, I'm talking of recent history. I'm not the ones people can relate to. You go far back, thousands of years, centuries, actually. All this to say is Obi is inspiring people, right?
Yeah.
He's the first politician since MKO to do that in Nigeria.
Lee Kuan Yew, the Singaporean leader, was an amazing inspirational figure. Or the Sheikh in Dubai, turned his country around just 30 years ago or something.
Yeah. So Obi is inspiring people.
The kingdom around.
There are cautionary tales of people that came in with big promises. Even like in Ghana, people was having the argument with people, some of my friends the other day, and they were talking about Ghanaian. I'm like, look, Ghanaian citizenship is just as high, but that's a whole different. We're talking about citizenships and stuff. But the Ghanaian politicians came in and talked a big game in some ways, and they're even broker than Nigeria. The only thing they have is like they have a more peaceful environment, so people can go there. But in terms of this thing, they're worse off. But there are cautionary tales of people who have come in with big promises and all that. And it's all down to, do you understand the dynamics of what you're dealing with? Do you understand the dynamics of, does he want to deliver? But that remains to be seen. Point is, first week of the campaign has been
I think Obi and his political movement made clearly the best impression. And to say that is an understatement, because the other two parties were basically missing in action. And my hope is that they make it. I hope that the PDP and the APC somehow find a game so that they make it interesting. It's important for all the three major political parties to recognize that there's a real contention for the soul of a very sick, enfeebled country. That the game ultimately is going to be won by the political party that shows the most insight and imagination and seriousness and vision in defining, understanding the nature of the crisis in the country, and then coming up with solutions. I agree with you that Obi is clearly inspiring the youth. If he wins, he has to even step up his game, okay, to levels that we have not seen on the African continent. Quite honestly, he has to. Because Nigeria is a special country. We can say that without needing to explain it. Just the sheer diversity of peoples, the population of the country, the scale of achievements of Nigerians around the world. And by the way, I was talking earlier about maybe an infusion of capital from foreign powers. But Nigerians in Europe, in Asia, in America have resources, which if they find a leader who is serious, people will give up themselves, give up their finances, give up their professional specialization, give up different kinds of talent. I've been asked in the past if I would accept a political position in any situation in Nigeria, and my answer was always no. I'm not cut out for politics. I don't. There's no political position I'll be interested in, period. But if we find an environment where a government in Nigeria is interested in revamping the educational sector, I definitely will offer myself to teach. Not to be an administrator, to teach in the classroom, because our kids need to be educated. Wole Soyinka just accepted a teaching position in Abu Dhabi, for New York University campus in Abu Dhabi. If Nigeria were different, right? Soyinka, I do know, had tried at one time to return to Ife as a visiting professor. But that plan was frustrated by the faculty, by some people within the university who, didn't care for somebody like that to come back and teach, which is a tragedy of Nigeria, So, so let's, we'll keep watching and, to see how the game turns out. But Obi, I think, has, even if he loses, okay, I think that is going to change in a substantial way the way that politics is run and practiced in Nigeria.
Yeah. In another way, I hope he doesn't lose, because here's the thing. All the guys are like, if you lose, it's okay, you go win next time. So it will all be about If you lose, you're going to run next time. And then this time around, you know what you're going to do? You're going to be one of us.
Mm.
You're going to be corrupt. You're going to find, you're going to be openly corrupt. Use that word. You're going to find a way of funneling money through you, find your people. I know you don't want to be a minister, but that kind of thing. You're going to be so compromised that when we reveal things about you, or if we need to, nobody's going to doubt.
Precisely.
No matter what you say right now, people are going to be like, but they're going to compromise you. And we've seen it. Fashola was supposed to be a great administrator. A Yoruba person should be running for president, should be Fashola, in my opinion. I think at least was a good administrator. Politically, he left it for Tinubu. There were other people who have done good jobs, but they found a way to compromise them, and they're highly compromised now. So, but yes, as you said.
As you said, it'd be, if Obi inspires the youth the way he's doing, and he loses in a country that has whose demographic distribution is weighted heavily, massively heavily in youth population, right? So if the youth back a candidate and the candidate loses, I think it's going to be, I don't see how that plays out, right? Unless there's some kind of hanky-panky. And if there is, and it is sustained, then the youth are going to be absolutely cynical. And they are good, if they turn cynical, they're no longer going to participate politically, and it's going to be counterproductive for the country. It's going to be also destructive, because once the energy of the youth is not channeled in a positive direction, it can be channeled in all kinds of really destructive directions. So that's one. So like you, I'm hoping that Obi wins. I have very modest expectations.
I don't hope any. I hope whatever is best happens.
Yes. I have very modest expectations. Even if he wins. Okay.
I do care, but
I'm not one to say that Obi will win and we're going to have a new Nigeria. We're going to have a new Nigeria if the young people who would have secured his victory sit stubbornly in his space and say to him, we're not going to let you start consulting with Obasanjo or Babangida or Danjuma or any of these other clowns who have wrecked the country to decide how we go forward. We decide how we go forward, because the youth are the country's best talent. Okay, They are bringing the great music, they're bringing the great art, they're bringing the great innovation that we see in that country. The energy that holds Nigeria, that helps Nigeria to survive, comes from the youth. The destructive energy comes from the geriatric demographic, who are stealing all the money, who are being corrupt in all the ways in which they specialize in corruption and so on. So I don't think that this is a situation where we can, how when Bukola Saraki announced his presidential bid, he said that, certain positions in his cabinet would go to young people. I said, no, young people should be running the entire show. They should not. They have earned the right. I have a lot of respect for young people, which is why even before this Obi movement started, I was sort of inviting young people to present one of their own and to rally around one of their own to become president. So they've chosen Obi, who is not entirely young, but he's far more young and far more energetic than much of the competition.
It's still a freshman. He's a freshman. He's a fresh. It's a fresh guy.
Yeah. So anyway. Yeah, right. So I really am looking forward to. I'm becoming more and more excited. Just observing the political developments and following them. what you know.
We'll see. We'll see as it goes,
We'll
man.
see.
I don't have a pick in the race. I would prefer Tinubu and Atiku don't win. If Obi doesn't win, they should go give it to like Kwankwaso or Chore.
Yeah.
No, not sure.
Kwankwaso, has some credentials in terms of,
He's not Aminu Kano. He wants to act like he is. He's just not.
Yeah,
Aminu Kano stood for something. But like you would always say, Aminu Kano was that guy that would was that just like Aminu Kano is this guy
will carry a placard against his own government if he become leader.
Even when you make him president, the next thing is Aminu Kano protesting himself outside.
Yeah.
Aminu Kano was addicted to that kind of those kind of
he saw himself. He was on the side of the Talakawa, So as president, he'll come out and find out that there are some Talakawa who are hungry, and he'll say, "How come I got breakfast and these people haven't eaten?" And he'll carry a placard. Down with this government.
Oh my God. For those who don't know, man, Aminu Kano was a legendary.
Yeah, he really populist.
People's Redemption Party.
Yeah.
Back in the 70s, and a lot of people,
with Balarabe Musa and Rimi and so on.
He was highly popular in Ebola, and a lot of people voted for him, including Chinua Achebe.
Chinua Achebe, was in that political party.
Yeah. I was was actually there too. So
yes.
But yeah, Chinua Achebe wrote about a lot of people voted
the trouble
for
with Nigeria. Yes.
Yeah. So anyway.
Well, so it's guys, we're going to be monitoring political developments in the country. As we've said, there's some excitement. We'll watch it and see how it all goes. So please do keep on joining us, and we look forward to welcoming you in the next episode. Have a brilliant rest of the week.
All right. Till the next one.
Yeah.